Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today it is Coach Natalie and I talking through the biggest mistakes we made coaching our first 100 clients. I know for me personally, these mistakes probably costed, is that correct? Cost me a lot of clients. And I really think it'll be helpful for any other coaches listening to avoid the same pitfalls. Not just talking tactics here. Do you see my dog just chasing the moth behind me?
I can't see her.
Okay. Anyways, not just tactics here, but also just mindset shifts we made that changed our entire approach, really helped the company grow. So whether you're a coach yourself or you are just coaching yourself, but if we're not working with a coach, this will help. Before we get into the episode, any personal updates for us, Natalie?
I'm in week 8 of prep, which is crazy. Like
Oh
almost to
yeah.
the end. Yeah, like I can't believe it's been 8 weeks. I'm like, it's just like time has flown. Um, but trucking right along. Had a really big drop last week. It's down like 2.4 pounds on average.
Damn.
Um, and then he refed me on Sunday. Today's Thursday, so today's refeed day. So like I did hit a new low yesterday, but my weekly average hasn't dropped yet. So I'm kind of like bummed that I have a refeed today because I'm like, that means like my chance for another low and to like bring down this week's average is somewhat limited. But it's not my job to think about that. So I'm like, I know that I'm not making mistakes on my end, so I'm just doing what I'm told, and we shall adjust if needed.
Spot on. Sounds like it's going well. Best prep of your life, would you say?
So far,
So
so good.
far.
Like, I still keep waiting for like prep to prep, you
Yeah,
know?
for it to get really hard. Or to
Yeah.
suck.
But I've said this before, I'm just trying to stay really present and enjoy the fact that it hasn't been hard. It hasn't gotten hard. Um, of course, there are days where I would like to eat more food. Like I can just feel energy is not what I would normally feel.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like it's so minimal. It's kind of like it feels like I'm more like on my low end of maintenance, really. Where it's like, yeah, like I'd be satisfied with more food, but like I'm functional kind of thing.
How much are you down so far, weight wise?
Oh, like 13, 14 pounds.
Pretty good. So like almost 10% of your body weight, right?
Yeah, for context, my average was right around like 155, and my lows have been like 140 now.
Okay. Pretty
Um,
solid.
and so I'm like, I'm like eager to break into the 130s now. And it feels like, you kind of have these little milestones or benchmarks along the way. Like I remember when I kind of safely got out of the 150s, I was like, okay, phew, I'm done with that now. And then, it's like, cool, next we tackle the 140s, and now it's like, okay, almost done with the 140s.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of like I'm on the precipice now of like breaking into the 130s, which is exciting. Because I think, the leaner I get, the more dramatic those changes are going to be
Right.
relative. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
so I'm excited. Like I'm already kind of catching some glimpses of things, like, oh, okay, that's new, that's cool. And like my posing practice this morning, I watched my video back and it was like one of the first times that I was like, okay, I see it. Like I see the vision. Like we're getting there. Whereas it just felt so far away, like a week ago, a few days ago even. So it's starting to feel a little bit more real. And then, of course, in like bodybuilding land, like there are shows happening every single weekend. A lot of really big shows. There's a big show this weekend, like a national qualifier show. And so like it's all over my social media. So I'm very much like, following like all these people friends that are up for their pro card. Like I have a friend who's like in contention this weekend for bikini at Universe and like all that. It's just very top of mind. So it's like it's a fun time.
Kind of cool to be like actually in the sport as well at the same time with all that.
Yeah, it's just really fun because like at any point in the season, someone's like a few weeks ahead of you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's like, okay, I'm 8 weeks in. We don't know how many weeks out I am because I don't have a show picked or anything. But let's say I'm like something like 8 to 10 weeks out would be my guess. So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, like there are all these people who are like, like just they're doing their shows like now. So it's like they're just like 8 to 10 weeks ahead of me, and it's really cool to follow.
Okay. Okay. No, I feel like every week, every time you post, not even every week, but like every time you post like training videos or like you're posing stuff, I'm like, damn, you got a lot leaner. Like, it looks like your abs are really started to come in as well. Like this last week, I noticed.
I feel like this is the point where we start to turn a corner where it's like there start to be some really big visual shifts, like even if the scale isn't that dramatic, and that's exciting. Like that's, I think,
Oh
when prep
yeah.
is going to start feeling like prep, and it's like, oh, that's cool. So it's enough to kind of like counter the fatigue or like the tiredness of it all. I was kind of trying to think through like, oh, I guess like I haven't eaten out at a restaurant in 8 weeks. I haven't eaten anything not prepared by me other than the bagels, which I do weigh on a scale. But I think a lot of that is just because this is what I was doing before prep.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really feel any different. I just have to be a little bit more on the money. I'm less likely to wing it. Like I'll stop talking in a second, but I spend a lot of time like over at my parents' house, and like they keep a fully stocked kitchen and pantry, and they
Yeah.
have so many things over there that's like I can just like make my lunch work over there, or like but like those are things I'm kind of like not doing. It's like no, 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 like I want my food. Like I don't want to deal with that. Just little things like that.
And little things like that, like when you are trying to push to be your absolute most shredded, do make a huge difference. I think that a lot of times people don't want to accept that they do. And like, well, I should be able to do this and see the same rate of progress. And the reality is like it depends on what your goal is, but if it is to like be the most ripped or make the quickest possible, like every little thing like that does make a difference. I'm glad you're still enjoying the bagels. I had two bagels on Tuesday in your honor. I was gonna get English muffins and I was like, wait, Natalie keeps talking about these bagels and they sound so good, so I like got some bagels instead. And then at the
Were
end of
they
the day, I was like, they were really good, but it was a mistake because I had so much. Not, I enjoyed the bagels, but I was also like, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm pretty hungry. I can tell that a lot of more of my carbs are like less satiating than normal. So
I'm
maybe
gonna have
not.
lunch for lunch today after this, and I'm very
That sounds
so
incredible.
it's gonna be.
On that note, let's get into biggest mistakes we made coaching our first 100 clients. To kick things off, one of the biggest, and I'm going to kind of approach this as so, what I started coaching in person in 2014, I started coaching online 2017 or 2018. I don't remember if it was April 2017 or April 2018 that I think it was April 2017 that I got my first online client. Um, but one of the things that stood out to me thinking about that, and more so like making this relevant to the online side of things, because I feel like honestly, I don't feel like the first couple of years I was really coaching. It was like I would go to a training session, I would take someone through a workout, and like that was it until like next time I saw them. So a lot different than the way like I actually started coaching. But first like year there, especially, I think my first like year of coaching people online, I think that misunderstanding reverse dieting, the application of reverse dieting was a huge mistake. I remember everyone coming in being like, dude, I only eat like 1,000 calories and I can't lose weight. Now, if you're a coach, probably 90% of the people who start coaching with you are going to say, I'm just not eating a whole lot. Like, I feel like for the amount I'm eating, I should be getting leaner. Like, I should be seeing more progress than I am. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, but a huge part of that is oftentimes, yeah, we're just not tracking our food that accurately, right? There will be that like, and this is less common than it used to be with like us working with a more advanced clientele now, but like so many instances I can think of where it was like, yeah, I eat 1,200 calories a day and I just am not losing. Cool. So we're gonna hop in your food logs. We'll like take a look. And I look at their food logs and it's like, okay, I see one day in the last month that we've tracked. And yes, we were 1,200 there, but like we understand that doesn't apply to the entire month if we only track like this one day. But I remember just like right away at the time, it would be like, oh shit, this person's metabolism is like, there's something wrong with their metabolism. I need to reverse diet them. And what that will do is that will bring their metabolic rate way up, which is also not true. like yes, to a degree, like there's metabolic adaptation is a product of basically our body size, how much we're currently moving, and how much we're currently eating. So like we will like slightly increase the calories we burn through digestion. Maybe if someone is under eating and we increase food more, we will see things like yes, their like leptin levels are in a better place. That's really tied into our energy expenditure as a whole. So we will like do more pacing, fidgeting, blinking, etc. But it won't be like this person's maintenance was 1,200 calories, and because I reverse dieted them, their maintenance is 2,000 calories, for example. Again, there are things like we've talked about a lot, like are we hitting our micronutrient needs? Like there's a lot of nuance here. But back then, my how I approached it was just like, okay, this is a person reported they're eating low calories. I'm going to focus on ramping their food up for the next like 3 months. And honestly, I bet they'll get a lot leaner during this, and then we'll like be able to just diet them down on way more food. Now, it never worked out like that. Realistically, like looking back on it, people were just again like not good at tracking their food. Needed more structure, like, but that was none of those people made like progress in terms of fat loss, right? It was just I was just so focused on the wrong thing. I just didn't understand the application of it. Thoughts there, or anything else to add?
No, I agree with everything you said. I've had the exact same experiences, and I think I don't mean this to come off the way I don't intend this to come off the way it might, but lumping into this kind of category, like taking the client's word for it, so to speak. Taking everything at face value, like I'm only eating this much, when
That's a
really
really
like
good, yes,
this process of like quote reverse dieting, call it what you want to call it, like working quote air quotes here, like working someone's calories up to a reasonable intake, kind of thing. It's actually really more of like an exploratory period, like
right,
in that primer phase where we're getting down to the bottom of things. Like, hey, like why are things not like working the way that the client thinks that it should be working? Like
right,
what are their bottlenecks? And through those processes and conversations and questions that we're asking, and now like sitting on the experience we have where we've seen it enough over time that we can kind of recognize these things, like we know the telltale signs in food logs, the right questions to be asking in terms of like, hey, how many meals out per week are we eating? And how are we accounting for those meals? There's, you know, and what I mean to say when I say that I don't intend this to come off negatively if anyone is perceiving it as such. What I mean by that is it's not that I don't want to trust a new client starting. It's just that people just have a way of just kind of like conveniently overlooking things or just reporting things as they truly perceive them. No
yeah,
one is trying to be deceptive. Like no one's trying to like lie to themselves or the coach or anything. It's just they don't know what they don't know. And they also tend to not know how deleterious like some of those things actually can be to their progress. Like things like that will go over like bites licks taste. So even if like everything's checking out in the food log, it's like it, a lot of this for us like learning as coaches is learning the patterns and like learning knowing the right questions to ask to get to the conclusion like okay, this is really what's happening. Yeah, that's what I would add.
I think that's very well put. I would say the taking the client's word for it as a whole would be like a big mistake that I've made in the past as well, and still is something I work through. Because when someone tells you like, "Oh, I'm super consistent," or like, "I want a meal plan," that's just like little things like that. I think that a lot of times there's have been
Or I
instances like that,
are.
right? Or I already have a lot of muscle, or I don't have a lot of muscle. And like you, Natalie, I remember you were way more jacked than I thought she would be. Um, but there's lots of instances like that where I didn't trust my gut because it was like, well, this person said like they're super consistent training like 5 days a week. I'm questioning that. Like, does that actually make sense? And then it's like, oh yeah, this wasn't a good. I shouldn't have done this. I should have trusted my gut initially. That has for sure been again, and not that like people are intentionally lying. It's just their perception of it is oftentimes not as objective as it needs to be, which is where a coach comes in.
I'll give an example here. I had a client start who was eating very low food, and that was the story. Like, hey, I'm eating like 12, 1,300 calories. And again, I've seen it enough times that I do kind of like know what rocks to turn over, what rocks to look under there. And kind of was like checking out a little bit, and this client also like really likes to run like long distances, quite frankly. And we got to one of her longer run days, and she comes back to me and she's like, "Oh, well, like obviously I'm gonna eat a lot more because I'm running, so much this day." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And it's like, oh, okay, like that didn't really figure into the so that was kind of one of those things. But again, I knew the questions to ask, and I eventually got there, and I was like, uh-huh, okay, now I see, sort of thing. But that, I just mean, that's an example where someone's just perception is different than what I know that actually works. They just don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what's relevant. So that's why you just have to get better at asking qualifying questions as a coach.
Yeah. And I think like in a nutshell, like don't oftentimes I think what this has led me to in the past is I don't start with this. I wouldn't start with the simplest solution first, i.e., are we actually tracking accurately? And would jump right to like the more complicated solution when a lot of times it is. Even like so many times there's been like I've had the conversation with a client around like here's how we track accurately. Fat loss is told, revisit that. Okay, that's the issue again, right? It's okay, but it's again I think it's just easy to like overlook those things. We're like, oh no, they would know, and it's just I think you're just making too many assumptions. You mentioned here one of your biggest mistakes was programming more for optimality.
Yeah.
Explain.
So going down that road of like, this is more optimal for hypertrophy. This is the best glute movement. Like everyone has to be doing a rear foot elevated split squat, which I'm gonna say, like, I think most of my clients are doing a rear foot elevated split squat. So maybe a poor example there. But I know so much more now through continuing education and like hiring mentors, working on things myself. I know so much more now about quality movement and execution and selecting movements for what a client needs in terms of like function and how that ultimately will translate over to hypertrophy. So I think this gets separated into two camps a lot, where you have team hypertrophy, like team optimal hypertrophy, and then you have team function, and like never the two shall meet, and that's not real. That's the wrong approach. You need to pull from both camps, and you need to know how to apply both buckets to your clients. So like, how is someone moving? How does someone move? What is their, what do their biomechanics dictate in terms of like, and the equipment available at their gym to like set them up, in order to do this? Or it used to be like, like, oh well, this movement is more stable, so I have to put everyone on a more stable movement because they're going to be able to exert more force, and we know that force production is going to equal hypertrophy. And it's like, okay, yes, but if said client is lacking something like, proper function at the hip, they can't like internally rotate or something like that, then like just putting them on a quote more stable movement, we will run into a roadblock at some point, whether it be like an injury or slowed or plateaued progress, like if we don't address some of those issues. So yeah, that definitely a big mistake I used to make. And so now like a lot of my programs look very different than they maybe used to. Because I have a lot of people doing a lot of different things. Like, hey, maybe this exercise isn't the best, quote, air quote, best for hypertrophy. However, this person sucks at hip extension. So, like, I'm going to use this other movement as a tool to improve their hip extension so that then when I put them into a glute driver or, Smith machine cast glute bridge or something like that, they're going to get a better result from that because now they are better at expressing that extension through the hip.
It's almost like the way the phases of nutrition work together, where it's like, okay, this person wants fat loss. Our goal is fat loss long term. calorie deficit and fat loss phases are the best tool for fat loss, right? But it's like, okay, well, do we need like a health phase first to get them in a
Yeah.
good position to get the most out of fat loss? That's like an example is like the one of my clients we've been working through where for the longest time she's had hip pain and like that's carrying over to some knee pain. It's like, okay, well, why would I do a dumbbell? Like, because I was in the exact same camp. And this is where like all the prescript stuff, like Nick Ridpath's help with us has been so incredibly helpful. Is this has been a big evolution for all of us in the last like year or so. Um, like for her, okay, so like why would I choose a dumbbell split squat over a Smith machine split squat? The Smith machine split squat's more stable, thus we get better output. Well, for her, like she does have issues at the hip, thus we have hip pain with that split squat and those same issues. As a whole, are kind of a limiting factor for the rest of our lower body training. So we're not getting good hypertrophy until we address this, which again we aren't gonna be able to do with like these like more quote unquote like just looking at optimality from like purely a hypertrophy perspective movements. I think that's a really good one.
We're just loading dysfunction at that point.
Correct.
And like I said, a lot of I find like the longer that I coach, the more we run into plateaus within training, progress
Mhm.
stalls. It usually is as a result of someone not moving well.
100%. Um, in terms of coaching and boundary mistakes, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made for a very long time was coaching not to lose. So I posted about this on Instagram the
That
other
was
day
a
as well. Thank you. I was fired up when I was writing it. But like
a good job.
in sports there's like the there's yeah you hear the are they playing not they're like playing not to lose rather than playing to win, right? And it's almost always like, oh, this team had the lead, but they were playing not to lose. Basically meaning we're playing very conservative, we're scared to make a mistake, which ultimately we end up like and typically that team like ends up losing. Now, like I know for the longest time I feel like that's how I would coach in terms of like what if I needed like I know the person's problem is just that they're not consistent enough. For example, I need to just challenge them to like get it together, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. What if they're mad at me? What if they leave because like I push them and challenge them? What if I make them feel bad? Like, am I a bad coach? Am I not an empathetic enough coach? And again, I think that's very much, or like, what if they're hungry, right? Things like, okay, I know that like if it was me going through this diet, I wanted the result that they want. I would need to be doing more cardio. I would have to have my food lower. I don't know, like, what if we can get the result for this person without having to push them as hard? Because I really like, they already mentioned like this is hard and like I don't want to have to push them harder. No, I'm not going to force it on anyone, right? We'll talk like it's okay if you don't want to do this, but like, hey, for the outcome, we need to make this adjustment. And again, like, what that does is like, as a coach, again, you're just playing not to lose. And thus, we're not doing the things we need to help the client win and actually get the result that they came to you for. And that's where I think a lot of times it's easy to get twisted as a whole, like, what is our role as coaches? It's funny how it's easy to think like, at least for me, so much. Natalie, you're super alpha, so I know this isn't much of a thing for you. I'm just kidding. But like for
Ridiculous.
me, for the longest time, because I'm a people pleaser, so it is like I want to be liked. What if I say something that makes them not like me? But it's like, okay, people didn't hire you to like have a paid friend who only tells them nice things. Even if you look at like even if you look at your friends, like if someone only tells you like what you want to hear versus like the things you need to hear, they're kind of a shitty friend, right? But it's funny how it's like as coaches where it's like they didn't even hire you to be like they probably do like you, yes, but it's not like they hired you to just be their friend. Even more so, we're like doing a shitty job coaching if we're also not like if we aren't being direct with people and just telling them the things that they need to hear to actually get the result. And I think the other thing is realizing like a lot of it I think comes from again like fear of being liked, which is okay, as a leader, like our job is to lead these people to the result. They didn't hire, they probably do like us, but again, it's not like that's not the sole reason that they hired us. It's first and foremost because they probably saw like when this person hired you, they probably had in their mind a vision of their future selves who was like held to a higher standard, who lives at like operates at a higher standard and thus got a better result than they had so far. They hired you to hold them to that and help them get there first and foremost. And again, like as a leader, which is our role here, I don't think the best leaders are ever making decisions based on like first and foremost what will make sure that I'm the most liked. But I think ultimately as well, like again, like it's not me saying like just be a dick to your clients. Like I think it's like gone too far in either directions at times. I think like the old school style of coaching where it would just like there's no empathy at all. I don't think is the move, but I also don't think the like I'm just here to be your biggest cheerleader girl and like only or like the like even this client isn't crushing it, but like oh like you tell them they're crushing it anyway. Like is that actually helping anyone? You know what I mean? It's very much like I think a lot of times it's just us trying to stay comfortable versus actually being able to help the client. Um, so I just feel like that's something I remind myself of a lot because I still like it. I try to be very direct with clients now, which isn't my natural way to communicate by any means. But it is funny how much more it helps, of course, a tremendous amount with people getting the result. But as a coach as well, like people really respect and appreciate you actually just being willing to be blunt and challenge them, or even initially. Um, if it's like it does like hurt their feelings a little bit, which will happen, people will typically come back around and like, okay, you're right. Thank you for this. And I just think that's important with the way we coach because I do think right now there is a lot more like and I think it does stem from like a lot of us are afraid of confrontation. Again, not you, Natalie. I'm just kidding. Natalie's not extremely confrontational. I don't like scare anybody off from that. But I just think it's really important to consider in the way that we coach because I think it's kind of swung too hard in the opposite direction of again like the old school style of coaching to like now it's like are we just afraid to tell people what they actually need to hear to get the result because it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah. Um, and not a ton to add because I have been there and it's something I constantly remind myself of. And I remind my clients too, like a lot of times like I can get really picky with my form feedback for training videos because like
Mhm.
that's an area that I mean I love it all of course, but like I love to train. I love helping people train better. And sometimes we'll go back and forth with a video and it's like they're like I've sent this to you every single week for 2 months. And I'm like, right, but like you hired me to help you make this better. And then they're like, you're right. So I will say, like, anytime there has been a bone of contention there, it's always like, I always love to remind clients like this is what you hired me for. Like you're trying to improve. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Um, so thank you to all my clients for being so receptive and positive to feedback because that is really what we're doing here. And I will add to that something I used to do. I I've had a lot of personal experience having to like improve my relationship with food and like go through all of that. And I also like used to be a part of a different coaching team that was much more rooted in like kind of like anti-diet culture and things of that nature. And this like coaching not to lose mentality, like, oh, like I don't want to have to tell them that they need to do more cardio. I don't want to take their food lower. I don't, because like I don't want to scar them to be like, dude, you just need to eat less. Like you got to move more. And like, for fear of kind of like that like kind of like flaring up of diet culture of like this is
Just like
disorder.
break the person somehow, yeah.
And it's really just like, okay, but sometimes like for the result that you have told me that you want, this is what is needed. And that is the coaching conversation. It's a constant reevaluation of like, is this still the goal? Cool. Then this is what we need to do to get there. And then the conversation can become, I don't want to do those things. Okay, that is okay, but let's walk back the goal a little bit and let's retool that. And that's kind of like this like week over week, month over month conversation where we're kind of constantly reevaluating, is this still the goal? Um, and if it is, then like I'm going to this is what you hired me to do. I'm going to push you in that direction. And based on how you are or are not responding, we need to make some changes. Um and I think that conversation falls very much into the like coaching not to lose thing. Like I'm a lot
Yeah.
more direct about this is what is needed to get you there.
And I think that this is an interesting conversation as well because I was having this conversation with someone, actually a new client who she had like in the past had like come from a background of disordered eating, and she was like, "I just hear you talking about how much you push your clients, and I'm scared that like that's gonna be like like I don't want to be like pushed to that like extreme again to where like something like that flares back up." And I think that a lot of times the issue here is when we talk about pushing clients, it is like talking about like pushing for fat loss specifically is where people's head goes, right? Like, okay, we're pushing more cardio, we're pushing calories lower. And sometimes those things are needed, but way more frequently still it is pushing the person to, no, dude, we're not going to diet yet. This is what we actually need. Whereas like coaching not to lose would be, which I've made this mistake many times, like, I don't think this person's ready for a diet yet, but I know it's what they want, and I don't want them to be upset. Like I haven't got them to like be in place where they're ready to diet yet, so I'm gonna tell them like, okay, yeah, we're good to go ahead and do it, right? Where it is much more so like, hey, we need to push harder in our training. We need to be better fueling ourselves here. We need to be on top of this and like eat more quality foods and things of that nature. It is a really interesting with like the whole like diet culture aspect of it as well when it comes to like challenging your clients. I and like will it like break this person? Will it put them in an extremely unhealthy place? And I think like where I've had so many conversations with people, so many like calls with people, new clients, potential new clients who are coming from a place of like that. And it is so interesting how it seems like one of the most common factors there is like if they had worked with a coach in the past and had kind of caused that. Of course, I can't say like what exactly does, but it is so often like there was never a focus on health. There was never like a focus, and it was like, hey, this person had you like dieting on or living on 1,200 calories for like 3 years, right? Whereas very much like, yeah, we might push a client hard in the fat loss phase, but we want to like get in and out of the phase as quickly as possible. We want to spend as much of our year as possible, like eating more food, really fueling you well, like getting you eating as much food as we possibly can, making sure your body is in the healthiest position possible. And I think that like that's such an important part of the conversation as well, is like it's not just always push food lower, push cardio harder indefinitely. It is just as much like, no, we need to get out of this. We need to do all these other things. And like most of your years shouldn't be spent dieting. Anything else to add there before we move on?
I think that's so important that,
Hmm.
perception of like how and when we're pushing, and why and how hard, and it's not just pertaining to fat loss. Um, but yeah, like I think just not being afraid, of pushing someone as hard as they need to be pushed, for whatever phase that they're in, for whatever goal that they're in. And just like being confident that, yeah, like this is what it's going to take. Like, hey, I would love for you to be able to eat out 5 nights a week and be shredded. I would love that for me. Forget
Yeah,
that. Forget you. Like, I would love
same.
that personally. But, again, been at it long enough to know that the likelihood of that happening is not it. So, you know, anyways, not much more to add.
All right, Natalie, you said being afraid to try new things and different approaches.
Yeah, I think when you start out with coaching, it's a very X's and O's. This is how I set someone up with macros, and this is an optimal trading program to tie in that part of the conversation. Um, and there are just different cases that call for different approaches, and being able to think outside the box and like apply those X's and O's in a different way. um Not everyone needs macros, not everyone needs a meal plan, not everyone, like, client needs are different. And being able to kind of like put someone in the appropriate bucket. If you are in the game long enough, you've probably seen most of the avatars that come through, and you kind of like, listen, everyone is completely unique as an individual, of course, and their circumstances, but everyone kind of falls into like under a certain umbrella, right? Um, and so the cases that we're trying to solve might be similar, but how that individual operates, like their lifestyle, sometimes does call for just like a different approach. And I find myself leaning into that more. Like the more experience that I get, the more confident I am doing that.
Yes.
Whereas, I think initially it's very easy for coaches, and I was like this as well, to really like hide behind data. Like I just need more data. Like I need to know like measurements, photos, like all of this, and then you kind of get someone where like that really just doesn't work for them. Like that's not that it's not helpful to this particular case. So like kind of recognizing some of those patterns and understanding like, you know what, actually I think this approach is going to be better for this person, or like challenging myself to come up with something that will be more effective. It's like, all right, if this is a total non-negotiable for the client, like the client comes back and says, absolutely not, I will not do, then it's on me to kind of like figure out, okay, well then like what's the alternative route that we're going to take to get there? And
Mhm.
I think that used to be more intimidating in years past, and now I find it like kind of more fun and challenging.
Yeah. I think that applies to so many aspects of it, like nutritionally. I think
Hmm.
there are so many like stigmas around like I don't know, like a low carb diet, for example. Not that
Hmm.
it's like my preferred or like the majority of, not that like the majority of clients are on that by any means, but there's definitely situations where, hey, this is a ton of application for us and it could make a lot of sense. Even like adjusting the things like you're training, like I'd love to have this person training like 5 days a week, but like, man, maybe they just don't seem to be recovering well. Like maybe I am like using lower volume than I typically would, or like pulling back the amount of training days and things of that nature. I agree. I think it's like but also you're talking more so in just like the way we're coaching people as a whole, it sounds like in like the
All of that is what I
yeah.
was thinking of, all of that. Like same thing. Like,
Hmm.
things where like I do have like a lot of clients rocking like some higher fats these days. And
Right.
like I know we've all talked about, and like they love it and they're very happy and they're seeing great progress. Whereas
Yeah.
before it's like, no, like I must buy us as many carbs as humanly possible because it is the body's preferred energy source. Like I'm just way more willing to break outside of like those kind of conventional, like this is what I always used to do kind of thing. And I'm much more game to like try things. Um, which you need the X's and O's before you can kind of like break out of the mold. So like I don't think, people need to start there like, oh, let's start out way out in left field, like I'm going to try this completely unconventional approach. It's like, no, 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 we need to spend time in the box,
Right.
before we break out of it. But I think having now spent enough time in the box, I am more confident breaking out of it. And that it's been really fun, honestly.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think we're very much on the same page there. There are a lot of things that even in looking at the like, okay, well, when I look at like the very like evidence-based community, okay, like calorie cycling, I think is a really good example of this, right? Where like from the research that we have, like there's not a huge amount of evidence to support calorie cycling. In application, dude, I've seen it work extremely well. Same as you said with like the higher fat, like okay, past a certain threshold, should we need more fat? I don't know. But and there's a lot more. I think there's like also like uh, digging into like metabolic flexibility. Like there's a lot we could use to justify that as well. But it's kind of like there are some things that are against the like
It wouldn't be my go-to kind of thing.
correct. Yes,
But then in
that
application, we see that it working very well. So it's pretty hard to dispute the
right.
result we're getting.
Because I mean, I think if we were looking at like just like a okay broad base, what seems to be like the best approach? Like in theory, probably everyone would be like a higher protein, high-ish carb, moderate fat. We probably all train like 4 days a week, and like it's
Mhm.
that. But yes, I think that's a very good point. Anything else to add there?
Mm-mm.
Similar to what we were talking about before, no training videos, which is a huge, huge, huge mistake I was making with my first clients. I'm honestly shocked that I didn't have this. Like, I don't know how I even like coach people without this because truly it is just as important as what we're doing with your nutrition, not just the training program. Like me not having training videos was the equivalent of me just like never looking at food logs or like, is the person actually tracking their food at all? I feel like you can give someone the best program on paper, but what actually dictates the outcome we get to a large degree is how well are they actually executing these movements? What is our intensity like? Are both of those things where they need to be? A lot of people already train relatively well, like well above average, but there's still a big gap between where they're at and where they need to be to get the outcome we want. But it was just so much like, I remember there being a time, and I think this is actually when I introduced training videos, where it was like, yeah, I can get people lean, but I feel like people just, I really am having a hard time getting anyone to build muscle. And I remember specifically being like, I look at where I'm at online. Why aren't my clients building as much muscle now as they were when I was working with people in person? And I think that's actually where the training videos came in, is like, huh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Um, where now, again, we're always having clients send over training videos weekly because this really just, when it comes to someone building muscle, like the actual quality of our training sessions is going to be like the most important variable there. And this is how we are able to audit that. No, we're also looking at like how some of those training logs are progressing. A ton of other feedback tells us like, do we need to adjust the training, yada yada yada. But this is just so important. Again, it's crazy to me that I ever was like able to coach about it. People build so much more muscle now. It truly is like such a helpful thing, but it is still like a, I think like every call I get on with a new potential client, people always just think they need help with the training or with the nutrition training. It's like, oh, I'm pretty good there. And then we get into it and it's always like, oh wow, I didn't even like know what I didn't know. And it's like almost, I think like almost always like the amount we can improve someone's training, help them build muscle makes just as much of a change as what we do with the nutrition. Other
Could
thoughts
not
there?
could not
Okay.
agree more. I still see so many online coaches not reviewing training videos.
Hmm.
Um, I see a lot of bodybuilding coaches not reviewing training videos, and that to me is wild.
So
Because
wild.
again, like in a sport that is based upon how much muscle you have, like we all know nutrition is important, but training is how we build the muscle. Nutrition is just how we're fueling those gains, right? And it's like you're just leaving so much progress on the table. I can't think of one client I have ever had who just got a gold star for every training video. Not one. And I include myself in that. Like
You were my only example of that.
my coaches always have feedback for me. You know, you
Yeah,
had feedback for
same.
me about things. I mean, you never had to ask me to like train harder, but we tweaked a lot of setups and things.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just it's invaluable. And again, like how how other coaching companies are not looking at this, I do not understand.
I agree, but it's incredibly rare that a client comes on board who has had someone review their. It's like almost non-existent. Honestly, still, it's such an interesting thing. I don't get it either, but it is what it is. Natalie, mistake you made was trying to fix everything in a client's life. Fill us in on what you mean.
Yeah. So, you know, this can kind of go along the lines of like maybe trying to be more of like a life coach or a friend. Um, it's first of all, when you're working with someone for any length of time, it's hard not to get to know them on a deeper relational level. I mean, coaching is a relationship, and I care about my clients, so I do want to know about their lives. And the reality is there are things in their life that affect our work together.
Mhm.
So, you know, our clients know that we always talk about things like stress and how your stress impacts your ability to build muscle and get lean and, you know, all of those things. So sometimes we have to have the conversation about stress management, perception of stress. Um, but, you know, thinking that like it was on me to like solve the stress in their lives outside like the way I look at it now, it's like, okay, I can't really help with that. So like if you hate your job, I can't help you. I wish I could because I care and I wish you didn't hate your job, you know, but it's more like okay, you are dealing with a lot of stress right now. I can't necessarily help with that one area, but I can help by, you know, toggling the kind of levers that I can pull, which are training and nutrition. So if I can offload some stress via training or nutrition, those are the handles I'm going to pull. But it is not on me to fix whatever is not good and well in your life. If I could, I would because I care, but it's also, to some extent, it's not my business. I'm not a mental health professional, and that's out of my scope. I'm not qualified. I'm not a relationship expert, I mean, by any means whatsoever.
You're not Andrea or I for sure.
So it's like it's not on me. Like I can't own that. I can't fix your relationships. I can't fix the job that you hate. I can't create you a life that you don't want to escape from. Like I can't take that on. I'm not qualified. And I think just being a lot more confident about that, because I used to feel like I had to, because I know as a coach, that if those other areas improve, so will your results. Like I
Yeah.
know that. However, that's not my purview. That's not my domain. So I need to release that from my grasp. Um, yeah, and I mean this is the stuff that used to keep me up with night at night, like, oh man, so and so's really struggling, they're going through a really hard time, like how are we going to get on the other side of this? And I very much do care, and I do think
Mhm.
about my clients outside of work, but I can't own it, and I can't fix it. And honestly, I my sleep improved so much once that kind of occurred to me.
I think that for me for a long time, because I had the same thing, it felt like just a constant need to prove how valuable I was. And so any problem in your life, I want to try to fix it, right? Whereas like and again, I think it's interesting talking to the like where coaching not to lose rather than like coaching to win. I think that a lot of people are scared to like coach their clients in that like coaching to win manner, but at the same time, almost try to like transition to more of like a life coach role,
Yeah.
which is like at least for me now, like your life experiences are different than mine, but I can't like tell like I can't give good advice on how to be a parent. I can't give good advice on like, hey, your dad is sick and like here's how like like I will like empathize with people. I have one client right now where like she's so incredible. Her dad has been in the hospital for like the last couple of weeks now and it's created a lot more stress and sleep hasn't been as good. Okay, cool. So we're adjusting training, we're deloading more, we're working through like what makes sense for us to do with our nutrition right now. And I'll work through like, hey, what is our sleep routine like? Like cool, maybe we have like some stress management practices in place, but also like no matter what, I would be very concerned if she was just like, my dad's in the hospital, he's very sick, and I'm not stressed at all because Jeremiah fixed it, right? Like I would just have made her inhuman. It's like just a part of, I don't know. I think that a lot of times it gets to almost like there's a degree to which this is helpful and there's a degree to which I'm just adding more stress. That's like that, and I think almost like as a coach, again, from like needing to feel valuable, like creating problems that weren't there, like, oh, this person checked in and honestly it seems like they had a really good week and I don't have a whole ton of feedback to give them as far as change this or this. They mentioned that one day their poop was kind of weird. Oh man, so I'm gonna dig into that. I don't know, and it's like, was this actually an issue? They're regular now. They just had like one off day and it was because they ate whatever meal out. It's a just funny thing to think about. Like that's not actually helping the person. I'm just like kind of adding more stress to their plate because it's like I'm making it more about me than the client at that point.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think just being more confident about what our scope is and staying within it,
Absolutely.
and like how we can be most effective. And I mean, I'm not beyond, like a lot of my clients know, I'm a huge proponent of things like therapy with
Hmm.
a qualified mental health professional, or an actual life coach, or something like that. I'm a huge fan. And I now am more confident recommending, like, hey, like have you ever thought to like ever thought of like talking to someone about this in, more
Yeah.
kind of professional capacity. I'm more confident recommending that if I feel like that's needed. Um, yeah.
I fully agree. I mean, this ties into another, like one of my points, which was trying to emulate what other coaches were doing to build my business. I know like there was like one of the first coaches that I worked with very much was like, there was a lot of like the mental side of things. Like, I'm going to get you journaling super consistently. We're going to like set these, like all these, like basically we're going to like grow you as a person and like all this stuff as well, which is sick if that happens, right? But at the same time, it's like, and I was like, okay, like all my clients, like, oh, this is going to be such an empowering experience for you in terms of like, I'm going to help you like grow so much, and like, I'm going to get all them journaling, and we're going to like work through like all this like mental health stuff and like mantras and things that, which again, like there are still like specific tools there that I use from time to time. But again, it's like, that's not, I don't think that's like what people are actually coming for me to help. Like, yes, you will grow, you will become a better person, but you're not coming to me as like, Jeremiah's gonna like, I don't know why I completely lost what I'm trying to say now. Jeremiah is going to like, I want Jeremiah to like help me like set all my life goals and like help me level up my career as well. Like, no, like that's the kind of the thing where it's like, I mean, I've only ever like I've poured concrete and I've helped people get jacked and lean. Like, I can't help you. I can't help you in your corporate job really, unless your promotions depend on how much you can bench, which you work at a great company and I can help if that's the case, and you deserve a promotion. But I don't know. It's a. I feel like that was something where it was like that did make a big difference for me, but it was a lot more specific to, okay, this is a coach that I looked up to. He helped me grow as a coach because I had a lot I could take from. Again, where it's like, am I gonna make this mom a better parent? No. My dog is very rebellious, very stubborn, poorly trained. Like, that's my only experience, and it hasn't. She's great, but I haven't. Like if it was a kid, she'd be a nightmare. So
That is a disaster to think
I we have talked about that as like
about.
Katie and I have talked about that with like, if our dog was actually a person, she would be the worst. But it's a good thing she's a dog because she's the best. Anything else to add there?
No, but agree.
Okay. I would say that I think the last, we have so many here left, but I don't think we're going to get through all of them. I would say one of the biggest final ones that stands out to me is just not having like a mentor or mentors to walk us through more challenging cases. I think that in the last, I mean, I've always had a coach, and we're continually doing like courses and things like that. But what in like the last 3 4 years especially, we have just constantly like had someone actually like a mentor, someone who can really just guide us through like, okay, I have this specific case, talk me through how we'd approach that. Right now we have Nick and we have Dom both, um and it is an expense as a coach, but it's paid back so tremendously well. Like, it's crazy to think, even in just like in the last year or two, like how much we have all grown. And that has definitely accelerated so much, being able to go from like okay, I'm searching all over for like general information on, okay, this client is struggling with like Hashimoto's, let's say. How do I address this? To, okay, I have someone who's guided like 100 people through this or more, and I can actually show them the specific case and like get their insights on it. Same thing with like Nick with the movement stuff, to like, hey, specific to this person and what we have going on, like how can we adjust that? That has been just so incredibly helpful, and I feel like has accelerated all of our growth so much. Like, I feel like in the last like 2 years we have all grown so quickly relative to, I feel like we were like in a good place before, but it's, I don't know, it's just been cool to see, and it's truly, I think that's such a big part of what I attribute that to.
You know how I feel about hiring mentors. That's how I linked up with you. I've always been a huge fan, and I will always have coaches, mentors. I say this so many times. I think we all kind of talk about this on our social media a lot. It's just, we all try to like give credit to like the people that have helped us and are helping us along the way, and very transparent about like how much we value those things and how it's the most efficient way from point A to point B. For you, for your clients, it's also really exciting, I think, I agree with you. I feel like the last 2 years, I'd say the last year and a half in particular, we have like come so far as a team. Um, and it's so exciting to me because again, I think we were already in a good place. But then to look back on the last year and a half, it's like, wow, like we did that. And so it's so exciting to like look ahead. And it's like, where are we going to be 2 years from now? Like that's wild. But it's really exciting. Um, so yeah, agree.
I love it. Cool. Let's wrap it up there. Let's say like closing thoughts as far as advice for any coaches listening. I truly think that like coaching, just looking at when you're coaching someone, the conversations you're having with them, is my intention here doing what's best for the person, or is my intention doing what I like is most comfortable for me in the moment? That's a huge part of it. Just please keep learning, keep growing. Mentors, having your own coaches, I think is the quickest way to make that happen. Any other like any last 2 cents you would throw in there?
Just that we all start somewhere and you have to spend some time just getting your hands dirty. So hopefully, you have you got to spend time in the trenches. Hopefully you've taken something from this episode. But episodes like this are not a substitution for time in the trenches. Like you still got to do
That's
your
correct.
time. These are just hopefully some helpful kind of different ways to think about things, and different areas for growth. But if you are a newer coach or looking into getting into coaching, you just got to get in there.
You're a new coach. Hire a coach for yourself if you haven't had one.
100%.
Great way to start learning. And yes, just don't be afraid to start working with people. Don't like be transparent about where you're at, your capabilities, I think is important as well. Don't like, oh yeah, you're my first client. I can fix all of your blood work, etc. But yes, like just getting in there, working with people, that is also a huge part of it. It's just we've all worked with a ton of people by this point. Um, cool. If you enjoy the show, do us a huge favor. Leave us a 5-star rating or review. If you want to apply to work with our team specifically, hit the link in the show notes. And we will catch you guys next time.